Anthony Grassi here for D3 Ticker at the 2025 NCAA Convention. Happy to sit down for a small college conversation with the new Hanover Vice President and Director of Athletics, Mark Shook. Mark, thank you for joining me.
Hey, thank you. This is a pleasure and it's an honor.
So as we sit here right now, you are living in both worlds.
Yes.
As still the AD at Kentucky Wesleyan, while also being kind of transitioning into that role at Hanover. Why was Hanover the right fit for you?
Yeah, Hanover, I mean, there's a few places in the college sports that you hear about, you know that there's a lot of respect out there, and the opportunity that came about through Spelman Johnson, you got to learn more very quickly, and I found at every step and every hour of my research that it's a really special place, and they, leadership-wise with Lake Lambert and their academic profile, and quite honestly, they're strong in athletics as well, and so the chance to be at a place that has that reputation, but also the academic rigor and the success. Those are all the things that matter.
Having just gone through that search, I'm curious how much time did you put into prep for however many rounds of interviews?
Yeah.
Obviously, you go back and once you're done, you can probably kind of debrief and like, all right, here's some things that I need to keep an eye on. Here's some notes I need to take about maybe digging further as I maybe go to the next round of the process. How much would all that look like for you?
I'm going to say it was about 3 months from the first conversation with the search firm and till my visit on campus and then the decision. So I was a coach in my former life, and the one thing that I remember, and this is from even being a student athlete through high school, the most prepared team is going to win, right? And so I was always proud that no one was going to outwork me and or outcoach me in that well either. So a lot of preparation, a lot of research, watching videos, watching interviews, just really pouring into the strategic plan. They have a diversity and equity plan that I really admired, and just so I would say at each round, from the first phone calls and Zoom calls with the committee, separate call with the president, another call with the trustees, and then getting the invite, every single one probably 8 to 10 hours to be ready for those. And then when I made the campus visit, really studying every single person that I was going to meet with, each of the student athletes that I was going to meet with, knowing that, you know, one was a really good photographer and social media influencer on the side, and the others, you know, whatever their hobbies were, even outside of their sport. So I think that kind of took some people aback, that it was like, whoa, okay, this guy did his homework. Mm-hmm. And but that's just who I am, and again, that's where I find the comfort, is the being prepared. And, you know, just like as a coach, we didn't want to make the decision on 4th and 2 when the rain is falling or when there's chaos going on. We wanted to make that decision, you know, on Tuesday.
Right.
Like what play are we going to run? We're on the right hash, and in 4th and 2, or for that 2-point conversion that's going to win the game. So all that thinking was out of the way, and that's really what made me, I think, successful in those interviews, but also, you know, confident that this was going to be the right place if I was given that opportunity.
As you wrap up with Kentucky Wesleyan, we talked about a few of the different things during your tenure.
Yep.
The first one to touch on was the one Team Wesleyan approach. I'm curious what some of the lessons you learned through that were, and what you can take to Hanover for that same philosophy. Maybe obviously under a different name.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So this started back at Bowling Green.
Okay.
And there's no license or trademark on it, because I'm sure we got it. I think we got it from Indiana at some point, but we were 23 sports, one team at Bowling Green, and really had our student athletes talk about those kind of core values and things that we stood for. And then at Wisconsin, I was proud to have led the one team Wisconsin athletics, and that's a department of about 1,400 people. Well, or 1,300, I think, is how many shirts we had ordered, but really trying to get everybody to get and think of the bigger picture and think of us versus me. And it's a coach thing, but it's also one where I've seen the success of when you don't have to be the most talented, but if you care about each other and you're there to lift each other up, and when it's tough times, or celebrate when there's a win, that we all win. And so being able to carry that then to Kentucky Wesleyan, and one Team Wesleyan. Really, I've worked over the years to focus on these 4 areas, and I want to add a 5th when I'm at Hanover, because I think it's always been there. But scholarship, number one, like the academic component of what are we doing to help our students find their passion and their calling, and get them on that track and support them academically. And then it's sport, right? It's about competition and winning. I mean, nobody that I've ever met that works as hard as an athlete does, just going to go out there just for the fun of it, right? You want to play, you want to win, you want to have success, but it's also about the people that you're with doing that. And then, so how are we supporting that, whether it's on the field or with the staff, whether it's strength and conditioning, nutrition, how are we supporting that? And putting them in the position with every single contest they walk into that we've got a chance. Okay, we may not have the biggest field or building or what have you, but we got a chance. And so that's a great feeling. And then it's service, right? So my parents gave me the role model of being service-oriented and really just what you get out of giving to others. And that feeling, you just can't, there's no other feeling about helping somebody and them just showing that genuine appreciation. And it's win-win. And I've always looked at that. So I'm really proud of our service efforts at Kentucky Wesleyan. And then it's the life part. Life is, there's a lot of there. It's just about how we're helping you grow, your career planning, just educating you. We usually are finding the really good students, and our coaches are finding them, but then it becomes, how am I going to grow from 18 to 22 or 18 to 21? And then how are we preparing you for the next 40 years of your life? So that's the life portion. What I did, and even in my presentation at Hanover, and it's always been there, but I haven't really defined it, but it's all wrapped in culture, right? And so you've heard the old statement that culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? And so it doesn't matter how much you think you've got this plan and you're ready. If you don't have the culture, if you don't have the people that are, pulling the same way on the rope and really committed to those same values, you're not going to have that success. And so what I feel like, and I'm proud of, is built at Kentucky Wesleyan through some hires and through just some reinforcement is this: we're in this together, and when one wins, we all win. And when someone's struggling, then we're all there to pick them up. And whether that's student athletes, supporting student athletes at their competitions, it's coaches in meetings, reaching out to each other. I would say one of the coolest things that I've experienced was this past Giving Tuesday. So we've broken our Giving Tuesday records for the 4 years in a row that I've been at AD, and I get emails when there's a receipt for who's given. Well, I was really surprised warmly that we had head coaches who were giving donations on Giving Tuesday to other sports programs. There were 5 of our head coaches that had given. Now, one of them, like I gave you $100, they gave us $100, but it was still, they were giving. But the other 3 were they were making gifts to each other to support the other's program. And to me, that really defines the one team mentality and approach. And so I'm going to miss that for them, and I hope that can carry on because it's really what's made us successful.
Absolutely. On the other end, one of the challenges that you experienced during your time at Kentucky Wesleyan was the elimination of sports.
Yes.
And that's something that has happened in multiple institutions, not just you. But I'm curious, as you sit here right now, maybe what were some of the lessons that you learned having gone through that?
Well, I got help. So I reached out to a few ADs who had to go through the similar things.
Mm-hmm.
That besides the death of an athlete or a staff member, like no AD wants to go through that or eliminating sports. Mm-hmm. So I think the ADs are often looked at as the ones who are the person who swung the axe, and it's a bigger decision. It's a college decision, one that certainly I was involved in, but when we start looking at how our programs are structured and sponsored and supported, and also the college was facing a deficit at that point, and so how do we, in the short term, help set ourselves up for the long term? And we know whether it was staff members who lost their jobs that day, or students who I stood in front of a big room and shared with them the news, it was going to hurt. And it still hurts. I mean, my heart is still broken for the kids that were involved. And what I would say is lessons learned, and this is for any AD out there, is that you got to do your homework, and you're going to do your homework and do everything you can to not do that. Right? That's the last. That's the only kind of resolution that can be. And so once you're there, and you work with your president and CFO and the trustees that are involved, they. It's a big decision, and so we then make and plan the day. And what I found was that, just compassion, honesty, not trying to evade, the anger that maybe comes from that, but to own it and just to really share how hard it was, but also what we're going to try to do to soften the blow, right? So when we made that decision, it was important to me when we knew we were going to have to make some significant budget cuts, again, across the campus, that we had the date and that I was able to do it at the end of our cross-country season before our indoor track season started so that there wouldn't be any eligibility lost, and also that it was important to us and the college to the scholarships that they had for athletics, they were there and they kept them until they were going to graduate. We were there to help students who wanted to transfer, and this is pretty normal in other places as well, that the freshmen and sophomore that have that's why they, a big part of why they came, they chose to leave, and we supported them and helped them with, whether it was transcripts or contacting compliance offices that we did that. But the juniors and seniors, many of them stayed, and I'll tell you, it was a grueling few weeks. And one of the memories that I have that I'll always hold is one of the student athletes. So I'm in the front of this room of 50 students. We have some of our cabinet members in the back, and I'm sharing this, and it had been rehearsed just about 2 minutes. I mean, it really wasn't a long. It was you had to get there. And they're sobbing, and there are kids hugging each other, and some kids had left the room, and it was rough. And just trying to be compassionate. And at the end, I mean, I'm wiped out, right? And I'm kind of sitting on the front where the stage was, and one of our athletes came up, and I thought she was going to just, lay into me, and this is bad. And she's like, "Mr. Shook," and I was like, "Yes." And I look up, and she's like, "Can I give you a hug?" And I was like, "Oh, man." Oh, yeah, I was speechless at that point, because if anybody, she was one of our best athletes, and this was going to impact her. And she just said, I can't imagine how hard that was, and just thank you for being real with us, and thank you for, no one wanted this, but just how you did this. So I always remember that compassion, and so I would just say you do your homework, that's the last resort, but then you deliver it with the compassion and care, and then you have a support network ready for those students, whether it's counselors or anyone else. So again, no AD wants to go through that, but I learned that much, and I also had the help in preparation from others. So
absolutely. Did that experience change you as a leader?
It did, in that how fragile what we do is, in that I had sports, part of my identity for a long time, and so I think what just changed me, in that how we want to make sure that we are separating our student and their personal identity from their sport at strategic times. And as I told the student athletes that day, you're more important to us as a student and as a student government person, or just than just how fast you can run, right? And so that was important. And I think we are looking at ways, and I'll work on this at Hanover as well, is the sport retirement piece of, we all have to retire at some point. Some of us were in 8th grade, some in high school, some then in college, and you also don't get to pick. So if you've got 95% of your identity wrapped up in your sport, that is a huge blow, whether it's your knee goes out or whatever. So what that does is it's changed me into appreciate that we need to let our student athletes love and play their sport, but also know that they are more to us than what they can do on the field or on the court and everything like that. And so I guess, I hope that's the last time. That was the first and last time I ever have to go through that. But I'm there, and I've had people call me since, working to get advice too, that they were going to have to make that same difficult decision. So, that's what I learned.
Yeah, we hope you don't have to go through that again. I'm curious you mentioned doing your homework. I'm always curious of the math of this, because the thing that, obviously the expenditure of, especially at Kentucky Wesleyan, of scholarships, the personnel that goes into it, the travel budget, all those things, but the net tuition revenue potentially lost on the back end if those student athletes do choose to transfer. I'm curious how you guys thought through that math, and if that, or is anything maybe that you would think through differently? So
basically, yes. So in small schools, there's two numbers that often get thrown up. It's the discount rate, meaning whatever your tuition number is, how much are you going to be able to, through academic merit, need base, and things like that, get that to a number that a family can afford, but still that the college stays open. If you're a private school, you've got to depend on enrollment for, 70, 80% maybe of your actual revenue. So at Kentucky Wesleyan, we looked at, this was a study that was done probably about 6 months, 8 months, quietly. And it wasn't about dropping the sport. It was about how to make our team stronger and how to make our department stronger for the future. But what we found, looking through historicals, looking through the roster numbers, which we were struggling with a few of them, the teams with even having a roster that was going to be at the minimum for sport sponsorship. But you do the cost benefit, right? And in the ratio of, okay, so this is how much we're spending in salaries, in operating, we had to rent a track. So we had a facility across the street from one of our school districts, nice track, but we had, there was a number there that we paid every year. So as you start stacking those up, I think you get to this, in the first year it's going to hurt. The second year, we had to shift resources. And so what ended up happening was some of our other rosters grew to make up for that. And then also some of the student enrollment or the recruitment for non-athletes had to grow. Because in any sport, there's a cost to the sport. It's a student comes in and we give them, $10,000 for athletics, and we're making, let's say, $20,000 in net revenue. Well, it's going to cost maybe $2,000 per student on that roster for the basics in operating, whether it's uniforms, practice gear, equipment, whatever. So we knew that first year this was going to take a big chunk off the operating expenses that we were going to have, and the scholarship piece we could afford to play out until the students graduated. And it ultimately came down to it was going to hurt, but over the course of the 2-3 years, that it was going to remove a pretty good chunk of our expenses, and we were going to be able to recover those in other sport or in other ways on campus. So again, you're talking about humans, you're talking about people, and again, that was my big thing, was how you're important much more to us as a student and as a campus community member than you were just in your sport itself. And there's definitely the math played a part, and those kinds of decisions, you've got to be able to see that this makes sense.
For sure. So now that we can transition back to the Hanover side of things, we can look forward. When you were at KWC, you had successes in facilities, fundraising, revenue generation. I'm curious what successes you had that can, and maybe the lessons you learned that can translate to Hanover, maybe what structural changes you think about putting in place.
Yeah, no, and I'll tell you, I think, so I've been to Hanover campus once, and so for my visit for my interview. So got a tour, just really impressed with their facilities, impressed with the staff, and so what I did though at Kentucky Wesleyan College, I had been there about a year and a half before I got the AD position as a senior associate. So I had a chance to really kind of learn where were we struggling in, and we had equity issues with locker room space. We had just cosmetic stuff that was like, this hasn't been painted in a while, or this needed to be freshened up. And so what I looked for very early on was where can we get the most for the money, and invested in those areas, but also building on just telling our story and making friends and understanding what we were selling. I looked at our boosters and our donors as kind of investors, right? And that you have an investment meeting, and I'm doing that now twice a year in the fall and in the winter, because this is what you're supporting and this is what you're doing. And so I know that that's important at every school, but at Hanover, same. I've talked with the president, and really just about, they've got some really good things in place, and their external relations unit has had success, and I know the coaches and the staff have done well. So mine will be kind of a learn and listen early on, but what I would look forward to is to identify some of those, the immediate needs, which it's different there. Again, they've just renovated a fair number of things. So now it becomes the things that really elevate you beyond just meeting the basic safety requirements and really kind of the icing on top, so to speak. So, but I look forward to getting to know the Hanover community, but also the alumni. I've already spoken with a few trustees and one of the major donors that just, I'm excited, and they're looking forward to it. I think Lynn Hall, remarkable career, and she's made a lot of friends. So I do have big shoes to fill, but I also have been able to bring my energy, I guess, and the Midwest values to just the folks from there that I'm looking forward to just making friends and really helping them see the value of their investments and getting some of our student athletes on camera as well. Like in my interview, I had lunch with some of the student leaders or student athlete leaders, and when I went around the room and asked them why did they pick Hanover and what are two things that they love most about it, I was stunned, and I said, well, if this works out and I get the job, you guys are going to get an invitation to
say all this again.
Say it again. Yeah, we're going to put a card up, because it was unscripted, but it was like, oh wow, that is a awesome recruiting, and even a message though to our donors to say, your support helps us do X and Y and Z, and it's from the heart, and it's real, and it's genuine. And what I'm finding is there are a lot of folks from Hanover, although it's not a big school, that want to give and want to be a part of that. And so I'm excited about that, and looking forward to working with the president and the VP for external relations, and and just going out and having those conversations and really growing the support for the department, but also for the college.
Have you thought about taking over for somebody who was the AD for a long time, very well respected? She kind of built this culture that you now step into, and you have not maybe a different culture, but you maybe have a different approach of doing anything. How do you think about the transition of the leadership and working your way through that?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I think, when I sat in front of the whole athletic staff and did my interview, I said, I realized that Lynn hired every single one of you, and that she is, she's remarkable. She's a legend there. I mean, she was a student athlete, and she was a coach for 10 or 12 years, and now, AD for 27 or 28 years, and she's developed the culture that any kind of a change is hard. And so, and I acknowledge that with them, that often, and I'm, the same, where when there's been a change somewhere where I've worked, the first question, you're not asking it out loud, but you're saying, how does this affect me?
Right.
And so, having that mindset and wherewithal of I want to learn about the culture, because they're doing some really good things. But I did tell them too, I said that I think that Lynn and I have the same heart, love for student athletes, love for, building competitive programs and supporting them in all ways, but we are different people, and we have different backgrounds. And so I think I'm looking forward to building that trust, in each person's own kind of time frame, right? I just can't like, hey, I'm the new guy and trust me, you know. But really, it's about the individual conversations and it's the interactions and then doing what you say you're going to do, right? I mean, we've all had leaders that say one thing and then just kind of forget about it and move on. And that's one of the things for me is that I'm really about, you know, again, do what you say you're going to do, and be smart about things and realistic. But just as you grow the trust, you're going to be able to have in effect change and again build that unit, right? So I have to believe that they're pretty close now. So the culture and taking what's there and then. But changing times, right? I'm happy. I'm really excited about being in Division III. I think it's the purest form of the sport still left, and that's me saying I've been at the highest levels of Division I and mid-majors, and then in Division II. That there are certainly good things about all of them. But what's happening now in the landscape, I really respect Division III because I think the effort, and even this week with some of the voting and what they've done in the past, is they're trying to protect that model of the you know, the student athlete experience, but for the love of the game, but that really the academic piece is paramount. And so and trying to stay away from, again, just some of the silliness that's going on and selfishness that's going on in the higher divisions. But I'm looking forward to getting to meet the other ADs in the conference. And the commissioner, he and I have spoken a few times, and looking forward to meeting him here as well today or tomorrow. But really, it's an exciting time to be in college athletics. And once you've been in it for about 25 years, you're kind of in a smaller bandwidth of people, right? You know, those first 10 years, you're going to wash out a lot of people just because you better be ready for this to be your lifestyle and not just a job. So. But after 25 years, my wife and I were looking forward to this being our last stop. I mean, 10, 12 years, just really caring with all the good things they're doing, but also helping to build and just in a great place, great Midwestern school, and one that has a reputation for strength in a lot of ways. So, it's an interesting time for us and for me personally, but I asked the president at Hanover when he offered the job, because I didn't know when the start date, that kind of thing would have been, but I just said, I'm asking if you could give me some time to leave Kentucky Wesleyan in the best place possible, because I've poured everything I had into that place for 5 years and the people, and I just can't, 2 weeks and see ya, you know. And he said, Mark, I wouldn't want to hire somebody who wouldn't want to leave their place in the best place possible. And so he spoke with Lynn, and she's now got a definite plan and path to, you know, the last few months for her, remarkable tenure, and so it's going to be win-win, and I'm excited for this, and I know that people at Hanover, we've had a lot of warm greetings and just congrats, and I feel like there's an energy there for us, and Lynn and I are, I think, really in line. I mean, we had lunch today just talking through things that we want to make it the smoothest transition possible, and I believe it will be.
It's a transition we look forward to seeing how you work through.
Yeah.
Mark, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you.